Hey guys, Brittany and Ogui here.
Hi, welcome to our YouTube channel because we've never done this before.
Yep, we're firsties.
Firsties. We've been taking on a lot of learning projects in this social isolation time.
And we can afford to do the follow-ups without being like, oh no, we gotta take that thing out of the whatever so we can do the next step, but we gotta go! Run! Because we got a class that we got planned for, and we need a story. Get your hat, get your everything! None of that. Just isolation.
Isolation.
So, we've had the chance to do more multi-step projects, and therefore Britt has been working on one of her
lifelong goals.
Lifelong goals. This project, she's tried it a total of 4 times. The first time, it failed. The second time, it also failed. The third time, unfortunately, and a fourth time,
it worked!
That's this time, and you guys get to hear all about it. All right, enjoy, folks.
So as many of the kids in our classes know, I have been attempting to learn how to tan hides by myself without a teacher for several years now. Scouring the internet, the libraries for books. So it's been a lot of process of trial and error, and after 3 failed attempts, I finally made some buckskin. Hey, come on over here. I want to show you how soft it is. It is like really, really soft. So in this first video, I am going to be showing you the very first step in the entire process, and that is learning how to flesh a hide. Stay tuned. As far as I'm aware, nobody in my living family still knows how to do this, which just 100 years ago, this would have been common knowledge. Clothing is really important for us as a species for a lot of reasons. And regardless of where your ancestors came from in the world, they knew how to provide for these most basic needs. One of the first things to consider is how to protect your clothing. For my homemade makeshift apron, I've chosen to cut up a old martial arts gi. This was old and fraying and stained and beyond repair. So this was a kind of interesting and creative second purpose. And it turns out actually it's pretty good and comfortable. Some people I have seen have cut arms and a head slot out of just a garbage bag. So this is my lovely tanning apron. Something else you can do if you get a belt is tuck the garbage bag into it, which just offers a little bit more protection. So secondly, obviously you need a hide. This particular hide, as you can see, has some pretty big gaping holes. Ideally, you want to get a hide without these kind of holes. These holes were obviously made by a butcher who really didn't care about the use of the hide. He was going for the meat. This is a fantastic hide for us to learn on because it's not optimal. So we're going to turn this over. So obviously this is deer hide, and I've already done about half of it. So as you can see, I am in the process of flushing the hide, which is basically getting the meat off of the hide as well as the fat. Now, the fat is essentially all this white goopy stuff that loves to gunk up all your tools. And both of those things can cause your hide to go rancid. So if you look up here, for instance, yes, these are both white. This is quite a bit of fat, and you want to remove that. So up here would be the neck. Down there would be the tail. So I'm going to put tail to neck here. So one thing you want to keep in mind is that you're not flushing this way or kind of around in a radial pattern. What you're going to be doing is instead taking neck to tail as a horizontal thing here, and you're going to be pushing down towards the stomach. So from the spine towards the stomach. And when you've done that half of the hide, going this way to this way, you'll then be turning it around. And again, pushing from spine to stomach of the animal.
You may want to mention the log at some point.
Yes. There are some knots right here. If I were to put the hide over top of this and try to flesh over top of it, I would be running into this and likely cutting the skin. So you don't want to do that. You want to take the time to really either select a smooth log or to smooth out any of these little bits that might be sticking out. So you have taken the time to really smooth this part out. One of the ways that you can do your hide is by putting it here and then using your body to press against it. A little bit better here. And so by doing this, to press against it, you pinch the hide between you and the log, which means it's not going to move. So any pushing and pressure you put on it allows the hide to not move down like this. So you're really getting at the flesh, which is the whole point of fleshing. But another option you have is to take your log and put it up against something like this, a wall or in between two trees. And then what you would do is drape the hide over this and pinch it between the wall or two trees. And at that point, instead of pushing like you would be doing over here, you would be pulling down and using your body weight this way. This is not a tip I learned the hard way. I luckily got this from a book, which I can't remember the name of. I believe it's Deerskin to Buckskin from 1970 something. I'll link it in the description below. Last but not least, you need some tools. Indigenous people in the Arctic use something with this called an ulu, and it's somewhat similar designed in that it's, you know, a blade that is rounded and whatnot. Right out of the store, it was too sharp, and so I've actually had to blunt it, which is a very bizarre thing when you spend so much time sharpening your knives and your tools to intentionally blunt something. But you don't want it too sharp because you're more likely to cut the skin, and as I'll show you, you want to really push the flesh off the skin more than cut it. So again, you put your body up against it. This is where the garbage bag and the apron come in handy. And you begin pressing. Now you can really use your whole body weight through this. You don't want to be gentle. Of course, if you're using like a rabbit hide or something else, you might want to be a bit gentle. And you do want to clean off your tools occasionally because it kind of gunks up and it's kind of gross. Tool, but
Could you use a hockey skate?
maybe we can try. We found this Korean hand hoe that seems to have been blacksmithed lovingly, and it's not particularly sharp. Pushing like this has not worked very well for the shape of this particular one. You can see it's very curved, but I have been able to get some good results by doing it this way. And when you go, you want to make sure to get all of it right off the edge. If you have a blunt hatchet or are willing to blunt it or just willing to be very, very, very careful, you'll notice the hatchet profile is curved and somewhat similar to an ulu's, so it's definitely usable as well. Again, you don't want to be pushing down into it like this. You got to remember that you're not cutting the flesh off. You are pushing the flesh off, which is why using a sharpened hatchet is not really the best idea. It does seem to work. Believe it or not, my favorite tool out of all of them has actually been the deer bone. That was kind of a bit of a surprise to me. I expected this to be much more difficult to use. But the deer leg bones are actually hollow, which it turns out makes a really great scraping tool. I did take my knife to sharpen the edges a little bit so that there wasn't any serrated areas. It was kind of smooth and a little bit sharper. I do like to wrap the handles that I'll be pushing Really anything to take the pressure off of the palms of your hands so that all of the pressure can be going into taking the flesh off the hide. You really don't want to skimp on this process. So getting the flesh to start going off with the deer bone I have found a little bit more difficult than with the metal tools. But once it has started, I have found it to actually be much more efficient. It is a very cool tool to be using, even just for historical reasons, or knowing that every tool you're using actually came from the forest. Oh, there we go. So yeah, and you can see right here it is kind of gunking up. So you do want to take your finger or a stick and bring that out so that the tool can continue working efficiently. So I would have to say, compared to the other tools I have mentioned, the hockey skate is probably one of the worst tools. It has entirely to do with the fact that it is very difficult to figure out how to hold it. This really was more efficient at gripping and grabbing and pushing the flesh off the skin. So that was a kind of a cool discovery. Sometimes the older technologies are the best. So at this point, I will be packing it up for the night. I will be folding it over itself, skin on skin, to help keep the moisture in it. And at this point, I can put it in a plastic bag in the fridge or the cold cellar or even the freezer at this point, to work on it another day, which will probably be tomorrow. So yeah, see you then. The overall idea here is to not let not having the proper tools stop you from learning. You can always find something if you get creative enough.
Subscribe to our channel.
Yeah.
I got to say it. And like this video.
Hope to see you soon. And for any of the children in our classes who have been wondering, this is our kitty Buster. We like him. We like him a lot. He's a pretty cool cat. So you'll see him in future videos because he's an adventure cat. I finally made some buckskins.